Sara Figueroa, and she's going to help us educate ourselves upon cannabis. And after she finishes, as usual, we'll come back and we'll be able to answer any questions you may have, any comments. We look forward to hearing from you guys. And Sara, you have the floor. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming today.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me, Donna and Aging Advantage. My name is Sara Figueroa. I am the Wellness and Aging Consultant for BeLeaf Medical. BeLeaf Medical is one of the oldest cannabis companies in the state of Missouri. They started out just way before medical was available to everyone, when it was only available to people with very severe illnesses. And they have grown their business to own 12 dispensaries across the state of Missouri. And those dispensaries are called SWADE, SWADE. If you've seen those around, we have 5 in the St. Louis area. So I'm talking about cannabis today. Cannabis is a very old plant. Humans have been using it almost as long as people have known that plants have different effects on the human body. So around the same time that other plant medicines and things like tea were being discovered, cannabis was also being discovered. It was discovered about 6,000 years ago in China, and it has been used all over the planet since that time. So today we're going to talk about how the legal cannabis market is available in Missouri and how people who are interested in using cannabis can use cannabis for themselves and be safe, especially if you are concerned about drug interactions or having a bad experience or anything like that. We'll talk about that today. So medical cannabis became legal in Missouri in 2018. The first dispensaries opened in 2020. Adult use cannabis, or what some people call recreational cannabis, became legal in 2023. And they started sales in February of 2023. Currently, medical cannabis is legal in 41 states in the US, the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C., and Puerto Rico. 26 states have decriminalized cannabis or have complete full adult use programs. And nearly half of the world's countries now have legal medical cannabis programs. So when cannabis becomes legal, there are a lot of benefits that are seen besides just having legal cannabis. Mainly, they see a big drop in opioid abuse and opioid-related deaths, a big decrease in alcohol use disorder or alcoholism. They also see increased home values, increased hotel revenues, increased tax revenues. And something people don't think about with cannabis a lot is that it is a local economy booster. These are all products that are grown, processed, and manufactured in your state. They provide jobs for your neighbors. They provide tax revenue for your cities and counties. There are also lower law enforcement costs, and it makes it so that the products that are available are safe, they're regulated, and you know exactly what you're getting, and you can get a larger variety of products. So when we're talking about wellness and aging, cannabis has been used for a lot of the things that occur naturally due to aging, especially when you say movement, joint pain. A lot of people really rely on cannabis for joint pain. It helps them with nutrition. It helps people eat better, have a better appetite. It helps with anxiety. It helps with depression. And it can also help with sleep. Those are the main reasons that people over the age of 60 typically use cannabis. So a little bit about the history of cannabis. If people are familiar with these bottles that you can see, a long time ago in the 1800s, cannabis was used in almost every single medication. There were thousands of medications developed that contained cannabis. The problem with these medications was that it also contained a lot of other substances like arsenic or strychnine, of course, alcohol, opium, things like that. So that's why the regulation on cannabis started, because at the time they didn't know which substances were poisonous and which substances were helpful. They just knew that they were all contained in these medications. And so then it started becoming illegal for medicinal use. Now, fast forward to today, we have a lot of older adults who are using cannabis for their wellness. People over the age of 50 are using medicinal cannabis increasingly for conditions associated with aging. There was a study done in California, which has had medicinal cannabis for 30 years now. And most older adults in this study started using cannabis after the age of 60 and used it primarily for the reasons I said before: medical purposes, to treat pain, sleep disturbances, anxiety, or depression. Now, a lot of the evidence of the use of cannabis is still very new and it's still ongoing. In the past, because of cannabis prohibition, cannabis research has been extremely limited. It's been extremely difficult to conduct. So currently, a lot of the research on cannabis is preclinical, meaning they haven't tested it on humans yet. But it is still ongoing. There are thousands of studies currently being conducted right now. I think last check was 8,500 something studies going on by the NIH. So it is growing. There's a lot of evidence growing for diseases like Alzheimer's or dementia, Parkinson's disease, other neurological disorders, especially multiple sclerosis. There's a lot of evidence, research being done. In the 1980s, scientists discovered that humans have something called an endocannabinoid system. It's sometimes shortened as the ECS. And this is the parts of our body that respond to cannabinoids. So this is why humans like using cannabis and why it causes wellness effects in our body. And you can see that the endocannabinoid system affects many different body systems depending on the receptors. So they know about CB1 receptors and CB2 receptors. CB1 receptors primarily affect the central nervous system, cardiovascular system, pulmonary. CB2 receptors affect the other things like digestion and metabolism, your immune system, things like that. And they're still learning a lot about different cannabinoids and how they affect different systems. So one of the things that they have discovered in the past decade is something called the entourage effect. And they've figured this out with preclinical studies of cannabis, that when they isolate different cannabinoids, there are they have less effects, as if less benefit than if you have a full spectrum cannabinoids. And when I'm talking about cannabinoids, these are substances within the plant. They are present in other plants also, but they are most, highly concentrated in cannabis. And so what they discovered is that there are multiple different cannabinoids. There's also things called terpenes and flavonoids. Those are present in other plants as well, but they all work together to provide the wellness benefit. So that's one thing that's really important to remember, is that with any cannabis product that you are considering for yourself, you want to look for full spectrum. This is a big list of conditions that have either been shown with research evidence or have been reported to help with cannabis. Some of the ones that are commonly associated would be, if people are going through cancer treatment and they have chemotherapy, cannabis can help a lot with with the nausea, with appetite loss, but it can also help with the neuropathy that often is associated with chemotherapy. Multiple sclerosis has a huge body of evidence that shows it is very effective. Cannabis is extremely effective for multiple sclerosis. One of the oldest uses of cannabis was for gastrointestinal disorders such as Crohn's disease. It's been shown to help with that. Glaucoma is one that we often associate with cannabis. It really helps with that. Migraines, there's different, you can see this list. A lot of this is also if it works for you. So maybe you do have multiple sclerosis and you tried cannabis, but it just didn't really make you feel well. That's okay. It just didn't work for you. So a lot of people just need to experiment to see what the best cannabis product is for them and the best way to use it, or if it works for them at all. Something else I like to point out for this is things like psoriasis and eczema. They are helped by cannabis. However, smoking cannabis can make the problem worse. And so, but topical cannabis or what are called tinctures, we'll go over that in a minute, is what's more effective. So sometimes the method of consumption of cannabis is better for a certain condition than it is for others. So what is a cannabis dispensary? Uh, a lot of people are confused about what this means. Cannabis dispensary is a retail store that is state regulated, and it allows people to buy different cannabis products. And so all the products that are state licensed and state tested are available for sale in a cannabis dispensary. Cannabis dispensary sells both medical cannabis products and recreational cannabis products. Each product in these dispensaries is state tested by third-party labs, and it is also tracked, what they call from seed to sale. So that way, if there is a problem with your cannabis product, they will know exactly who bought it and they can help you get a refund or replace it. And so they know exactly where that is. When you go to a dispensary, it's a little bit different from going to a regular store. You do have to show your ID as soon as you walk in the store, and then they will check it to make sure. There's also a state allotment of how much cannabis you can buy in one day. Most people don't even come close to that allotment, so don't worry about that. But you'll get signed in. They'll check to make sure that everything is up to date. And then you'll wait for a bud tender to come out. And bud tender is the person who knows about all the products in the store, and they will help you purchase your cannabis. When you meet with the bud tender, you can ask any questions you have. They are happy to answer them. You can take as much time as you need. These are your product specialists, so they'll know. If you come in there, you can say, I'm looking for help. My knee hurts at night. And they'll say, great, we have this wonderful topical that'll work really well. Or they'll say, maybe you can try this transdermal patch. They'll suggest different things for you. So take as much time as you need, ask as many questions as you want. You can pick products from there if you decide you want to buy something, or you can make an online pre-order ahead of time. You can go on the website and just pick it out, just like shopping at Amazon, and they'll have it ready to go for you when you get to the store. Our store, Suede, offers delivery now. A lot of dispensaries are, so you can have them delivered to your home. And usually dispensaries offer discounts. So Sway Dispensaries offers a veterans discount of 22%. If we call the wisdom discount over age 60 is 15%. So that's helpful too. You get a little bit of a discount when you go in. So how do people consume cannabis? And so we talked about the different conditions, and the different consumption methods are better for some health conditions than for others. But typically people consume cannabis by inhaling it. So that's smoking what they call the flower, or they also inhale it through a vaporized concentrate or vapes. You can eat it, ingest it, which just, those typically now come in gummies, gummy candy, or what they call like pills, tablets, capsules. That's the ingesting. So that goes through your GI tract. There's also sublingual oral mucosal. So that's just putting it inside your mouth and holding it under your tongue for a minute, and it goes into your body that way. And there's also transdermal, which is or topical, and those can come in patches or in like a cream or lotion. These are the inhalants. Flower, like I said before, you smoke it. Cartridges are what are called vapes. And then extracts are what are known as like dabs or wax or shatter. Those are very high concentrated THC products. They require pretty complicated rig or setup to consume those. So those are a little bit advanced level of cannabis use, but they can teach you how to use those at the cannabis dispensary. For edibles, gummies, mints, chocolate is also really popular. Capsules or pills and beverages are also starting to become more popular. And it depends on, again, how people like to consume it. Um, the advantage of edibles is that it's pretty discreet. There's no air pollutants or odor, and they also have a longer duration of effect. However, they are difficult to try out to see. Sometimes you have to really adjust your dose a lot, and it's difficult to divide the serving. So if you're looking for like microdose or low dose THC, then it can be a little bit difficult to divide those. Um, and it goes through your gastrointestinal tract, so there could be a potential for drug interactions, although those are very few and they're very rarely seen. Oral mucosal sublingual is typically tinctures, and that's a cannabis concentrate that is just, like I said, held under the tongue. It can be swallowed, or it can be spit out. So if people can't digest anything or inhale anything, a tincture is a really good option because it goes directly to your bloodstream through your mouth. It doesn't have to be swallowed. And then transdermal patches. These are similar to the tinctures, actually. These are a cannabis concentrate that goes directly to the bloodstream. They're typically in a patch, like as you've probably seen, maybe lidocaine patches or hormone patches. And similar to that, you place it at a place like inside your wrist or the top of your foot. And it delivers a continuous dose of medicine over time. The advantage of these is that they are very discreet. They are very fast acting. They go directly to the bloodstream. They can also be cut smaller and very easily divided for dosage, and it'll work exactly the same with the rate of delivery. And there's no smoke or odor or anything like that. Topicals are usually lotions. They are really helpful for people with joint pain. They are pretty fast acting. Topicals are a really good option for people who do not want to have cannabis go into their bloodstream or into their gastrointestinal tract. This only goes where you put it. So if you put a cannabis lotion on your knee or your elbow, it's only going to be there. It's not going to make you high. It's not going to have any of the other effects throughout your system. So those are a really good option for a lot of people, especially if they are new to cannabis. They are very, very convenient, very discreet. There's no smoke or smell or anything like that. And also no potential for drug interactions. So all of the products are tested before they even come into our facilities. There are 10 state certified third-party labs in the state of Missouri, and they test for processing chemicals, pesticides, fungus, all those impurities, but they also test to make sure that the advertised amount of cannabinoids are present in that product. So say that a company says this product has 100 milligrams of THC. These third-party labs will test to make sure that there's 100 milligrams of THC. And if it comes up short on the test, then they will have to change the label. Testing is pretty strict. These protect the consumer completely. So there's a lot of confusion about cannabis dispensaries and cannabis products, especially because now, CBD is something that has never been illegal because it doesn't have that psychoactive effect like THC does. And so there are a lot of concerns about unregulated products. People, you can go to the gas station or the grocery store and you can see these CBD products, and a lot of people assume that they're the same as a state licensed dispensary. There's a lot of concerns about that. In one case study, the study is titled Cannabis Gummies Cause a Man to Go to the Hospital for Several Days. So what happened? There was a 56-year-old man. He, on his lunch break at work, he stopped at a gas station and got some CBD gummies. And then after lunch, his coworkers noticed that he was unconscious and lethargic. He began vomiting. He had severe gastrointestinal problems. He was completely unconscious for 48 hours. They couldn't even intubate him because he was vomiting so much, but he was in severe pulmonary distress. When he finally was conscious enough to tell the doctors what happened, they found out he had gotten 2 bags of gummies from the gas station and ate both bags entirely before he went back to work. He'd eaten 10 times the serving size on the package. Because these were unregulated cannabis products, they didn't know what had been added to them. He didn't know where they came from. They were completely unregulated and unknown. And so that's a huge safety concern when we're talking about cannabis products. You always want to go to a state licensed dispensary. Another case study is from a product that was a cannabis from a state licensed dispensary. There was a 94-year-old woman. She had altered mental status. She was having diarrhea, hallucinating. They weren't sure what was going on. They had to admit her to the hospital. After 5 days of being admitted in the hospital, one of her relatives who she lived with confessed that they had given the 94-year-old woman some cannabis oil in the form of edible brownies that they had made. So this family member was very well intentioned. They really wanted to help out their 94-year-old relative. They bought some cannabis oil from a state licensed dispensary, and then they put it into some brownies that they baked. So the problem with that is that this person they don't know how to dose it correctly. They don't know what dose would have worked well for their relative. They were very well intentioned. They just wanted to help. But this is the kind of thing that needs to be left to the professionals. It's really difficult to even dose correctly for the professionals. They work really hard to get it exactly right. And so a product like this, wasn't made to the standards that a dispensary would sell. And they don't know what the dose is. And you don't know when you're cutting up a pan of brownies what your dose is going to be throughout the pan. So um, it was, it's something that, they were just trying to help, but they really should stick to products that you know the exact dosage, like a gummy or a mint or something like that. So these are products that are available for sale in Missouri. After the Hemp Bill 2018 was signed, they allowed products like this that look like legal cannabis to be sold. And one of the ways you can tell that it is one of the unregulated products is a lot of times they will copy common candy. This one says lifesavers here. There's, nerds, a lot of different, very common, popular candies, and they will make their packaging look exactly like that. And it's really difficult to tell the difference. And these are also really dangerous around children because children won't be able to tell the difference between this type of candy and candy that has cannabis in it. So you can see up here that labeling is unclear. There are no warnings really, or if they do, they kind of hide the warning that there is cannabis in it. They will also be made outside of the state of Missouri. That's another tip-off, is that you don't know, it doesn't say where it was manufactured or where it came from. There's no testing information. There's no safety information. The package is not childproof. All legal cannabis has to have packaging that is childproof. Uh, so they also, like I said, these, colorful packages that um, look just like candy that you can buy in the grocery store. They're just trying to trick people into thinking this is a normal product. So here's an example of the type of cannabis product packaging that you would find in a state licensed dispensary. As you can see, they can't have colorful, bright um, packages. They can't really have pictures on their packages. It can't look like anything that you could buy in a grocery store. It also has to have marijuana really big in big letters. It also has to have these compliance labels. And I'm going to show you a close-up of that in a minute. So these compliance labels will have, the testing number, the lab license number, the tracking number, all these things that the state has determined are what they want to see in the regulation of cannabis. Another thing you'll notice, of course, child-resistant packaging, and there'll be a web link or a QR code to go directly to the manufacturer and have additional product info. You'll also see this big diamond that says THC really big, and that M is for Missouri. That's how you know it was made in Missouri, but you'll also can see on the packaging that this was made in the state of Missouri. And here's a close-up of a compliant cannabis label. You can see up in the top left, there is the name of the cannabis strain, which is just the different type of cannabis plant that they used for this. It will have the dosage. So they'll say each dose is 4 milligrams, and they'll show, 4 milligrams out of a 500 milligram package. And then they'll have each cannabinoid listed and how much per dose. So this one is a 1-to-1 ratio of THC to CBD. So that means 2 milligrams of THC and 2 milligrams of CBD per dose. And so depending on the cannabis and the different cannabinoids that you are looking for, these will be listed on the package. The ingredients are listed, the manufacturer. There will be a best by date. There'll be a percentage of the cannabinoids, the batch number, and this UPC code, or sometimes there'll be a QR code that will go to the manufacturer. So this is something also that you always want to look for. And if you're in a state licensed dispensary, every product in the store will have a compliant label like this. So, if you're new to cannabis, there are some things that you can do to have a more pleasant experience, to use it for wellness. One of the biggest mistakes that people make is mixing cannabis with alcohol. Both of those things can make each other stronger. So, you might be used to drinking a certain amount of alcohol, but then you add cannabis to it, and it suddenly seems like you've had more alcohol than before. And same with cannabis, alcohol can make the effects of cannabis a lot stronger than maybe you are expecting. And so, a lot of times when people are kind of experimenting with this newly legal product, they might try it for the first time out at a like a wedding or a celebration where there is alcohol involved also, and then they have a pretty bad time because they mix the two together. So also, if you're trying cannabis for the first time, try it at home when, you're just there with your couch and all of your things and not out in public where you might fall down. So, also, every time you take cannabis, check the dosage every single time, especially if you're doing edibles. You always want to make sure that you're taking the correct dosage. And then you also want to monitor your intake, which means don't take a cannabis gummy and then an hour later take another one. Wait to see, wait several hours. It might, the effect might take longer to show up in your system, or it might not at all, but at least wait until the next day before you take more. Check your prescriptions for drug interactions with cannabis. Those are very few and far between. Like I said, we've had medical cannabis for 30 years. And so if there were a lot of drug interactions, we probably would be seeing them regularly, and doctors aren't seeing that in hospitals and emergency rooms. However, it's always a good idea for every prescription that you have to check and make sure that they don't interact with each other. And another way that you can just make sure that your medications, your prescribed medications, are doing what they're supposed to do is take your medications first before you consume any cannabis products. So avoid green out when we're talking about cannabis safety. Green out is when people take too much cannabis at once, especially if they are not familiar with the effects that cannabis is going to have on them. And the term is just called greening out. And it's just a mildly unpleasant sensation of just feeling like maybe a bit dizzy or disoriented. So a lot of times at dispensaries, they'll say start low and go slow, but they don't say what that means. Well, start low means starting with 1 milligram or 2.5 milligrams of THC. And again, THC is the cannabinoid that people associate with getting high or that mild euphoria effect. So you want to start really slow. It's difficult to find products that only contain 1 milligram of THC, but there are some out there. And you can also go up to 2.5 milligrams. But only do that for your first day. Wait a whole day until you're done, and you can start adding more if you want. Go slow. They wait at least 3 hours for taking more. Often with older adults, we recommend to wait a full 24 hours. And then no crossfading. Crossfading is mixing alcohol and THC. Like I said before, they make each other stronger, and you might have an unexpected experience if you mix alcohol with THC. So what happens if you accidentally took too much, or you feel like that dose was too high for you? You want to drink some water, relax, put on a movie, maybe or your favorite music, sit or lie down, especially if you're feeling dizzy. It'll go away soon. It doesn't happen very often, but when people are new to cannabis, especially if they have well-intentioned family members who are trying to get them to try a cannabis gummy, it might be too high of a dose to start with. So again, start low, 2.5 milligrams, and go slow. Do not take more than 10 milligrams of THC at a time. In Missouri, we do have medical cannabis. You can obtain a medical cannabis card. It requires it's a pretty easy process, but there are time sensitive steps. So you have to have it submitted by a certain time to make sure that your paperwork can go through with the state. Once you get your card, it is valid for 3 years. It's really easy to get a recommendation. People get recommendations for cannabis cards based on different ailments. It could be something like migraines, it can be anxiety, it could be cancer treatment, it could be autism, it can be all kinds of different conditions. And there are physicians who are licensed by the state to recommend cannabis cards. There are companies, our partner is Bluebird Wellness, but there are many companies who can, for a small fee, they'll help you process your medical cannabis card. And those are pretty helpful because they can provide the state licensed physician to make the recommendation. They can make sure that your paperwork gets in on time. And it's usually a pretty small fee, like $25. The benefits of having your cannabis card, usually at dispensaries, they have a dedicated line for people with cannabis cards, so you get to jump the line. You don't have to wait. There's also lower taxes on medical cannabis, so that saves you a little bit of money too. And there's also usually a wider inventory selection that are specifically for medical cannabis patients. That is the end of my talk. Thank you so much. I am happy to answer any questions today. And also, if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. It is available.
Great. Thank you so much. We really appreciate all this good information you have allowed us to share with our clients and people that we serve. I do have a comment or question in the chat. Let's see here if I can get to it. Come on, little crazy computer. Here it is. Okay. She says, I had a patient in a situation with a dosage mistake. The doctor switched the patient from medical CBD to medical THC. However, the patient could not read the prescription. Let's see here. Is it? Could not read the prescription correctly and thought I was just to take 2 gummies, same as the other. Poor thing was so high they believed they were dying, screaming and crying in the emergency room. Oh, that is very sad. Okay, so she
Mhm,
ended up having um eyesight issues that caused her to read it incorrectly. How
mhm.
terrible. I know you probably heard of stories like that yourself before, I'm sure.
Yep, yep, that's
Yeah,
very common. Very
yeah.
common, especially when it's really easy to get THC and CBD confused. So yeah, you're right. When we're
Mm.
switching to THC can be helpful and it helps the other cannabinoids work in the body. So maybe that's why the doctor decided to change the prescription or add that in there. However, yeah, it doesn't THC and CBD don't act the same way. So CBD is one of the cannabinoids. There's also CBG and CBN, and they have
Mm.
different effects on the body. But yeah, always watch that dosage. And especially when we're talking about people who are new to this experience, like this patient, um, 10 milligrams of THC would be the absolute max dosage. They sell them up to, you could buy 500 milligrams of THC in a gummy or just really, really high dosage. But when we're talking about people who haven't tried it before, always look for that 10 milligrams maximum. That's the one that they've determined will, after that, then you start getting these effects where people have a lot of anxiety or are scared that they might be dying.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good though to know that, to start off at a low dosage.
Hmm.
Yeah, just to see how your body reacts to it first and then try to increase it maybe in moderation, even at that point, and
Right.
just try to, 10 milligrams didn't do nothing for me. So I'll go ahead and take 250, and
Right.
then that's you're having a reverse reaction and you're like, uh-oh, what happened? So
Exactly. And you don't
yeah,
know
we
what's
got to
going
be
on.
exactly.
Yeah.
And you mentioned two others. You said CBG
Yes.
and what was the other?
CBN.
CBN. Do you
Yes.
think now we may need you, Sarah, to come back then and educate us on those then, if you're able
Yes.
to at some
I'm happy
time? Yeah,
to. Hmm.
yeah, because I've never heard of either of those. So we most definitely know that there's no telling how many others that haven't heard of it either. So yeah, we
Yep.
would love for you to come back at any time.
Definitely.
Um, please come back and share with us. This was great. We appreciate you once
Definitely
again.
come back.
Thank you so much. I don't
Thank you for having me.
think we have any other questions or comments. Nope. So if you are interested in anything that Sarah shared with us today, any other questions may come up later for those of you who are not on today but looks at her video later. Please, by all means, you have her information to contact her. If you lose it or forget it, you can always call Agent Advantage. And of course, we will put you in contact. Always remember that, again, these talks, we offer them through our local grants and donations. We offer the programs to help with the effects of COVID and other post-pandemic situations. Like I said before, the isolation or the food or housing insecurities. And so we're able to provide this partnership or these educational opportunities through partnership through the ARPA program through St. Louis City. So fun. So we again thank you so much, Sarah, for coming on, sharing with us today. It's great, great information. And I wouldn't be surprised if your emails start blowing up pretty soon, okay?
Hope so.
And
Yeah,
again, thank
please
you
reach
so
out.
much. All
Thank
righty,
you. Thank you for
great.
having me.
You're
Thanks.
welcome. You guys have a great day. We'll
You too.
see you next time.
Bye.
Thank you again. Bye.